part two. Part two
Dos.
of 2 days
Dos.
of practice for the East West Shrine Bowl. Cecil and Mase, Andrew Mason. We are live, or pre-recorded, I should say, in
Well,
Las Vegas.
do you remember the Larry Sanders Show?
Of course, yeah.
We got to do what Hank Hey Now Kingsley would say. Live on tape.
That's true. We are live on tape from the East West Shrine Bowl. And let's start with the West practice from Sunday because they went first. And it was a Terrell Smith type of day. No matter what you did or what you were watching, if you watched practice, you saw Smith get 3 interceptions, an absolutely outstanding day. And I like the way that he got multiple interceptions in multiple different ways, Mace.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a player who could have upgraded their stock more here in Las Vegas than Terrell Smith did, because not only doing it in multiple ways, but this is somebody you look at. Is he better in zone? Is he better in man? I think he can do both based on what we saw out there the last couple of days. So this is somebody who's a relatively scheme independent player who I think is going to end up on most teams' draft boards at some point. And I think we may be talking about Terrell Smith sneaking into the 3rd round here, which if you're a Shrine Bowl player and you get to round 3, that's sort of that's generally the ceiling of what we're talking about here.
Right.
But
right.
here's the thing. And I know there are some that may hear what we're saying about Terrell Smith, like, okay, great. What about some other positions of need? You always need corners. And if you're sitting there picking in round 3 and you want to bolster that room, he might be a guy that ends up in the Broncos targets.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, in my report on Sunday, and you read it at denversports.com, I said he kind of teleports. He's like, you just look where the ball is going and then he's there. So however he's doing it, reading the quarterback's eyes, always around the ball, always making pass breakups. Like if there was a defensive play to be made, it was usually him.
It was incredible just how he built off that. I mean, that's you. And the thing is, you'd think at some point the QBs would stop testing him, but they didn't. And yet,
right.
and so that gave him more opportunities to make some plays on this day after what he did yesterday. So I mean, this is I'm not sure anybody has helped their stock here more than Terrell Smith, although he's not the only guy who stood out. By the way, general theme of the day: defense,
and more
both
defense
the East and the West. Yeah.
Yeah, and more defense. West side is what we're talking about right now. We'll get to the East and all that. And there's a couple of Boston College players I want to talk about. There's a Pittsburgh edge that we can talk about.
Yeah.
But I just want to alert everybody because we had people saying you should be on the lookout for Zay Flowers. Yes, we know Zay Flowers.
Yes.
Players, we got it. Zay Flowers, and I made an effort to just like, okay, pay attention to what he's doing because he didn't make my notebook yesterday, which is rare for a guy that explosive. And I don't know if I should blame the quarterback play, and because the quarterbacks were hanging on the ball too long, or maybe not finding the receivers the way that they should. Flowers is super quick, changes directions super fast, very clean, very crisp, lots of burst. But he just, other than underneath stuff, I didn't see him get the ball as much. And again, Mace, maybe that's just bad QB play, but Flowers is here, and he's certainly the physical traits you can see. Just would have liked to seen him make more plays.
Well, it's not that they weren't willing to test the defense down the field, but I was surprised they weren't bringing that into play with Zay Flowers as a target as well. That being said, he still made my top 5 for the day on the West side of things. I don't know about your top 5, but he made my top 5. But it was, I think it was underwhelming, less because of him and more because of how he was used in the quarterback play on that side.
Right. Let's talk West Side defenders. Another Boston College guy that I highlighted in my top 5 today was Jaden Woodby. And my first note on him is that he never gives up. He never stops. He's a hustle player, to be sure. And these are why these practices matter, because coaches, scouts, they're going to understand, and they're going to see the guys that are out there giving it their all, giving full effort, not worrying about their, my agent said I've got to watch out for the injury. No, playing with your hair on fire. It's exactly what Woodby did today.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that. Another guy who was playing with his hair on fire was Habakkuk Baldonado out of Pitt, and he had the best close to practice. practice of anyone out there with one sack and then another that really could have easily been a sack, flushing the quarterback out. But even going back and rewatching the team period reps, he's consistently disruptive. And that's something we'll get into when we talk about the East practice as well. But when you are consistently doing that, not just a flash, but it's happening over and over again, there's something there. And just and he jumped to the list of top edges for me, at least on the west side of things.
You said on our social networking, Baldonado was balling out. So that's kind of the way it goes. And the energy that he created for all the other players. Like, it was a defensive day, and the defensive guys were like talking smack, and they were feeling it today.
Yeah, they were. And I think it doesn't surprise me that we saw a different tone of practice, by the way, from the West today, because it's the Patriots running it. And dare I say, it seemed a little bit languid, a little bit a down-tempo practice on Saturday. I don't know if this was just part of how Bill Belichick and his coaches kind of planned it to going from one day to the next, but it had a different feel out there. Felt crisper, felt more energetic. Didn't need music to do that. It just happened with the play and how they ran practice.
All right. And on Sunday, West was first, East was second. That's why we're talking about the East now. And it is A.J. Finley, safety of Ole Miss. Looks like a corner out there. And he's the player with 3 picks today. So there you go. East corner or safety. See, I did it again because he looks like a corner out there.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, part of it is good anticipation. There was one of the picks where he had to lunge for it. It was a bad throw by Tanner Morgan, but it was a good read on it by him. When I went and slowed it down, I'm from a distance, so I don't have a clear angle. He might have let the ball hit the ground underneath his grasp, but even so, he's there to have a chance to make the play. I'm going to give him credit for it. On the field, they called it an interception. But I also want to tip the cap on his third interception. It was a tip drill. And what you've got is you got Jeremy Banks of Tennessee. He's in coverage on Daniel Barker from Michigan State. And Barker's got a step on him, but Banks catches up. And he's looking at Barker. So this is a kind of play where you run the risk of a PI if you make contact too early, because his head is not turned back to the quarterback. So it's a little bit weak on Banks. But if you time it right, you don't have to look back. It is not a penalty to look directly at the receiving target as long as you time your contact perfectly. And what he does, he's right there in tight coverage. He gets his hands up, gets a hand on the football. There's no contact. The official was right there, saw it. Clean play. It was a good day for Banks. We're going to get into some other defensive standouts, but Banks was also strong reading run plays and had a couple of plays that he stuffed at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. But got to give him the tip of the cap on the third pick for A.J. Finley. Finley had a great day, but he had some help.
Yeah, and Banks made my top 5 yesterday. Didn't make my top 5 today, but Anthony Orji, who made it yesterday, made it today as well. But it's that linebacker play, and I heard the coaches praising Banks often throughout practice for his effort, for always being around the ball. And that's as a run stuffer, but also in coverage, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it was a good all-around day. And the thing is, you're looking for linebackers who can do everything. I mean, that's, they're hard to find. Off-ball linebacker, we can debate where it stacks up in terms of draft positional value. But finding those guys who can stay on the field for every snap and not be a liability, it's tough. So when you see him right there downfield in the grill of a tight end and being in position to make a play on the ball like that in tight coverage and flourishing against the run, reading plays as they develop and getting the right spot, that's the sort of thing that it'll make you take a longer look at Jeremy Banks. And he's somebody I think that could be in the mid-round conversation.
Mase, we got about a minute left. Final thoughts from Las Vegas. On Monday, when you're watching this pre-recorded show of Orange and Blue today, we will actually be in the air on our way to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl for Tuesday, Wednesday, and part of Thursday. So, Mase, final thoughts as we wrap up our Shrine coverage.
Not really a big picture thing, but there's one other guy I want to mention. That's Dante Stills out of West Virginia. And he flashed initially. When I went back and rewatched the footage, he's blowing stuff up play after play after play. The dude plays nasty, plays with a lot of energy. And if the Broncos lose Draymond Jones, whether it's a tag and trade or they let him go in free agency, they're going to have a gaping hole in that defensive line. They're going to need some dudes in there. And I like the add to the Stills bring. They're as you sometimes would hear from Aqib Talib, there's dog in him. There's dog in Dante Stills.
No doubt. And a potty mouth, but we can't repeat what he said. It was awesome.
Exactly.
It was awesome after making a play, chasing down a running back, and just like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So, props.
You can see that video on my Twitter feed, by the way.
Okay. All right. There you go. Unedited, I assume.
I mean, I put a language warning in there, but you can see it, but it's good. You know what though? That's the sort of fire that he played with all day. Like that's, I mean, again, the dude you're looking for tenacity. You're looking for guys that got the dog in them, right? I mean, and maybe that's something the Broncos have lacked a little bit the last couple of years. They got to get some more dogs out there.
So in my notebook for Stills, I put intensity in 10 cities because we love quoting Wayne's World. So
live at Budokai.
Milwaukee. We're off to Mobile, Alabama. He's Mase. I'm Cease. Thanks everyone for watching. Be safe, be kind. Know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned and please stay frosty.